Welcome everybody. We've got here for the Connected Advice Ecosystem live industry panel discussion brought to you by OPEX. In this session, it's designed to have a practical, real-world discussion focused on how firms navigate complexity, improve efficiency, and ultimately deliver a better client outcome through a more connected approach. So now I'll just talk to you about who our panelists are for this event. Panelist and facilitator will be Reg Gabia. He's our Head of Strategic Partnerships at OPEX Consulting. So he works closely with advice firms on how advice is delivered end-to-end. This includes workflows through advice production and will be guiding the conversation to keep it grounded in what it looks like in practice. Reg has 20 plus years experience running advice technology teams for licensees and platforms. We then have Greg Davis. He's the Director of Customer Success at Fin365. Greg works closely with advice firms across Australia on how their client and business workflows operate day to day, particularly where those workflows start to break down across firms. From a CRM and operations perspective, he brings a strong view on where duplication, manual handoffs and efficiencies show up and what changes when those systems are better connected and supporting through a more consistent workflow. Greg is currently based in Melbourne. And last but not least, we have Ian Bowery. He's the CEO and partner of MyFortress. Ian and his team work closely with clients to deliver a tailored financial advice across different life stages with a strong focus on building long-term partnerships and helping clients create and grow and protect their wealth. Ian brings a practitioner's perspective to today's live discussion, and he'll be sharing what it looks like in practice for his team and where they've seen the biggest impacts across advice delivery day to day. Ian is based in Townsville. So as you can see, we've got a great collection of gentlemen from across the country. So from that, Reg, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Millie. Welcome to our viewers. So this is about working through using a live case through MyFortress, Ian's business, who's gone through a transformation program over the last 2 years. What were the learnings? What worked? What didn't work? Many of you are probably, as you approach the end of the financial year, you're probably reflecting and pausing and also planning maybe tech review around the July, August, September. So this webinar is deliberate, it's quite timely because it's a great opportunity for one of our respected practitioners to share that learnings out there in the field. So let's kick it off. Ian, first question to you, mate, is that if you can just introduce the MyFortress business to our viewers, and also, mate, try to also talk about what the business looked like 2 years ago.
Yeah, thanks, Reg. So we are based in Townsville and we are a multidiscipline firm. So we do financial planning, accounting and mortgage broking. We have a team of 65 all based in Townsville. And we do everything from the start of the advice process all the way through to the generation of the statement of advice process in-house. If I take us back 2 years ago, the business had been growing really well and we were starting to look for efficiencies, and to find those efficiencies, we'd started plugging in a whole heap of different technology solutions that solved one problem, but often created another with that. So from an advice generation software, we were using Xplan, which for us was expensive and inefficient. And from a CRM perspective and our focus on getting one view of the client, we were using a software called Xeppo. So we had a whole heap of disparate systems that didn't talk to each other. They did a really good job at the task that we wanted it to do, but they were creating significant re-entering of data and a lot of manual workarounds for us to actually get the outputs that we wanted. So around 2 years ago, we were looking for a different process and a different technology to assist with our advice generation tool. And as part of that journey, we had discovered IF. And we were really on that journey with IF to look for finding efficiencies in the actual production of those advice tools. And then 18 months ago, we went to the Fin365 conference in Sydney. And that's really when we decided as a business that we needed to take a step back, strip everything back to what we actually wanted to do and revisit our tech roadmap. And it was at that point where we actually started to focus and sit down and map to where we are now.
Thank you, Ian. So I think the key point there is that you were an Xplan shop and you're also using Xeppo as your CRM for the multidiscipline diversified sort of business. Mate, obviously you tried to solve the advice problem first. Was there a particular moment, was there a day or time where you just stepped in, realised that I'm going to take a closer look at this advice problem? Were there any signs? Was it staff being fatigued? Was it turnaround times were too long? Was there a particular moment where you just put your foot down and said, let's have a good look at this?
Yeah, I think the trigger for us was when we, around 2 years ago, when we took a closer look at our advice process, and we found on average that from when the client first walked in our door for the initial appointment to when the client was actually presented a statement of advice, it was taking on average 90 days. And there were some worse, there were some slightly better, but 90 days. And for us, that wasn't a good outcome for the client that had a need for advice. It obviously wasn't a good outcome for the business, and it created a lot of frustrations within the team, from the admin team to the paraplanning team to the advice team, around how long that process was taking. And so that's when we took the step back and realised that the issue wasn't with our advice process as such, it was with the technology that was supporting the advice process. And we knew things had to change once we realised that the 3-month process was just too long for everyone involved.
Mate, 3 months is a long time. We'll probably time for an hour away by that time, Greg. Mate, just from your perspective, Greg, where do practices typically start to feel the kind of the friction as they grow? Because Ian's obviously, the My Fortress business has been growing for a long time. From your experience speaking to many firms, where do they start to feel the friction? So Ian's highlighted the timeline from start to end to onboard a client, which is 90 days. What's your insights just based on the chats that you've had?
From a pre-sales perspective, the most common question we get asked is that, where do I start? And normally that's coming from a place of frustration or agitation. Most businesses we tend to meet, Reg, in the first instance, are using incumbent monolithic systems, meaning one of the incumbent models of AdvisorLogic or Midwinter or Xplan or whatever. And that's what they think they're using for the most part. They use that as a de facto CRM, but also advice production, maybe some other elements involved for revenue management or whatever. But when we start to unpack it and they really go through some sort of introspection, ideally with their team, and I think Ian did this well, they actually work out they're not just using one monolithic system. They're using a spreadsheet for this, an external system for that. I'm using MailChimp for marketing. And it turns out they're actually using a very busy screen of tools. And the frustration there begins with the lack of connectedness, Reg. They're not talking to each other, the system. So in an idealized utopian world, you would start the journey with the customer at the lead or discovery level, and that data would flow through different tools as appropriate for advice production or client portals or things of that nature. And for the longest time, that hasn't been true for decades. We've all been around long enough to know that. But that's normally where the agitation starts. And everyone comes to that from a different realization. For Ian, that was the 90-day turnaround time. For others, Reg, it's capability. They can't recruit advisors fast enough. They've got clients, both referral and M&A, coming at the door, and they can't deliver the advice at scale well enough. So it's a reflection of those systems to say, where do we get started with this? There are many ways now. If you choose the right connected tools in the ecosystem, you can plug and play as appropriate. So in this case, they tackle the advice production component first and the CRM and business management tools second, and that's totally fine. As long as those tools you think you're on the right track with all talk to each other, you can go through a sort of staged approach of change, because that can be very disruptive to staff and to processes. You can go through a staged approach. It's about really understanding what you're trying to achieve. A lot of the time, it's generally driven by 3 things, Reg. 1, cost. As Ian called out, cost is a consideration to deal with, certainly. 2, frustrations with double entry of data, Reg, and the systems aren't talking to each other. And 3, productivity. And staff are stressed, and management is stressed, and advisors are stressed, and no one really feels like that they have the tools they need to be able to do their jobs easily and quickly. That's normally the 3 motivating factors where practices come to us at some point. Very common feelings.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a feeling, isn't it? 90 days, low morale of the staff. True leadership needs to come in and try to assess this situation and sort things out. I'm going to direct this next question to you, Ian, because, obviously a leader, you mentioned you met Paul or you went to a Fin365 conference. That's just an event, right? But talk me through when you were 2 years ago, when you saw your team struggling to deliver advice and all these challenges, you shared some guiding principles. Maybe you could pick the top 3 and what sort of helped you shape those principles before moving to the next phase of finding a solution.
So before we went down the journey of recreating what our tech roadmap would look like, there was a few principles that we used to actually set that outlook. One of the first ones was that we had to come to the realization that technology is not going to solve each task that you're trying to solve to 100% of your requirements unless you're going to go and grab all these disparate systems, which was the issue we already had. So for us, if we could find a technology stack that was going to do the job 80%, that was good enough for us in terms of the actual task that we were trying to solve for. The next one was simplification. So we wanted to make sure that as part of this journey, we actually reduced the amount of technologies that we've used. And I know that being 2 years down the path of this journey, we've actually reduced the technologies and different technologies that we use by about 15 programs. So simplification was really key. Third one would have been that they had to be integrated. So we had to get to a point where we were reducing manual data entry and reducing the re-entry of data as well. So having systems that actually spoke to each other and there was one source of truth where the data flowed in and out of that was really important to us. And then those being the three guiding principles, where we then actually started was we had a look internally around what we were using on a day-to-day basis. And for us, which I expect would be the same as a lot of financial planning business, we were using a lot of the Microsoft products. So every day, a lot of our team were using Word, Excel, SharePoint, OneDrive, PowerPoint. So the decision for us also was around what technologies the team familiar with, what company is the team going to know how to already use some of those programs, and potentially we just haven't explored what the capabilities of that company was. And we also needed to continue to look to the future and go, what company is actually going to help us with where we think we're going to go down the automation approach also. And so we really started with our core being Microsoft as the start of that journey.
No, very good. I think you said 3 principles, but I wrote down 4 there, Ian. Setting your priorities right, simplification, integration, so only enter data once, and the 4th one is really optimization, right? Being able to optimize what you've got. Really good thoughts. Thank you for that. Just on that, Greg, this could be a challenging question, right? Controversial could be, but I've read reports, you'd love this, Greg, where basically key message is there's a positive correlation between the more tech in your stack, then there's a positive correlation to business performance. Whilst in Ian's case, it looks like it's worked the other way around, where he's actually got too many tools and he's simplified it, made it more integrated, and that's producing really good business outcomes for him. What do you stand with that, Greg? You're in the ecosystem, you're open for business, but what feedback can you give to the viewers?
Did you insert the general advice warning at the start of this, Millie, about recommendations of product and things? There's no PDS attached to this. This is purely the Fin 365 position, Reg. I think it was a fellow Queenslander, and at that conference you were talking about, that said, why not Microsoft on the stage? I think it was sort of echoed in your head. And understanding the tools you have, and are you making best use of those tools already? I think you were using digital signatures and other tools at the time. The best place to start with that, Reg, and every firm will settle on a different combination of tools for themselves, but there's this impression that there's a silver bullet somewhere. One silver bullet, one product that will do all things. And I think that most of us were born from that model of the Coin world, or again, the Advisor Logic or Xplan or Bitwinter world. In the rapid pace of change technology is moving through, including IF itself, I don't believe any one tool can provide every single thing that a financial advice firm needs. If you break that apart into digital client engagement, Ian, in terms of a client portal, I think if you talk about a really good CRM that helps you run your business and not just do the day-to-day workflow and client data, but surface key information and insights in AI, those sort of things. But then we still need to produce a widget legally, don't we? We still need to produce under Corporations Act documentation of advice. That's still true. And then there's other peripheral elements, Reg, of revenue management and comms like digital telephony and all those sorts of things that hang off it. So I think having one tool to do all things is an unrealistic pursuit. But to Ian's point of starting with, I think he said he reduced 15 or subtracted 15. I don't know what his final number is now. But step one would be, Reg, to assess what you really have. And most people would say, yeah, Greg, I'll just use Coin because it's not around anymore. We're a Coin house. And I would say, are you really? Okay. How do you do digital signatures? I will use DocuSign. How do you do meetings, Teams? How do you do presentation of advice, Word plus PowerPoint? How do you do calendar management, Calendly? And if you really write it out, there's actually be 30 tools, really. And they're thinking the main incumbent one, maybe that costs them the most, or is the most important to them. Every firm should do that at least once a year, Reg, is our point, regularly, and work out Do we need these three tools that sort of do similar things, whatever that may be? Do we need to have in both Word and PowerPoint to present the advice? Can we not do the advice in PowerPoint, present that to the client? Is that legally allowed? And all those sort of discussions. Not to say you can unbundle PowerPoint from Word, but you get my point. Firms should go through that, Reg. Now, we did a similar thing. BM365 has a tech consulting arm to it, separate from the product, and occasionally we get brought in by firms to do this analysis. And there's a firm that you and I both know, Reg, that we did that for recently. And it turned out through M&A and things, they had 3 different tools for digital signatures. 3. And different people in the business were using different tools to send client OFAs and signatures and things. But this was something that hadn't gone and sat down for a period of time and thought through, what are we using for revenue management or digital signatures or marketing or whatever the tool was. So there's a sweet spot, Reg, is the answer to this. Really, if you write down at least once or twice a year all of the tools you're using for everything under the sun, and be really open and honest with your admin team and CSMs and advisors, and there'll be some things you find out that I'm sure surprise you. Oh yeah, I've been putting all my client data into Claude every day and all sorts of other things. Some of those things you might not be comfortable with, but get the reality out. Find out really why they're pursuing these tools. As Ian's done, really have an honest conversation about, can we reduce some of this noise? And you'll have some advocates for certain tools, Reg, in the business saying, I love this tool, I use it this way. And even if nothing else, the broader management or the IT team in the business become aware of that. And what are the best parts about this, Reg? Why do you use it? Well, what's good about it? And they can advocate for it. In order to retain it, that's worth doing. Because then we could say, guys, let's all make the decision to leave this tool alone. This person loves it. If it feels a value, it's economically viable. Maybe it integrates. That's a great thing. Let's leave that alone for a while. So not one, Reg, is the answer. The reality is you probably can't not have some sort of Office suite. Now, there's still people that use G Suite, I'm sure, or Open Docs, which is a free document templating stuff, but most people don't. Most firms use the Microsoft suite for Microsoft 365 type products. So as a baseline, that's probably true. But then all those other tools you need to run a financial advice business day-to-day, Reg. Do you need Product Rec standalone? Do you need to have OmniLife standalone? Do you need to have Calendly? Do you need to have Calendly when I've also got Bookings in as well? Like, why would I have both? If you don't have those skills internally to go through that discovery session internally, I think Ian did that internally. He has the staff and the skills to do it. Start internally. Just have a 1 or 2 hour discussion with your team and go through all the things that you're using day to day, and you'll be surprised by some of the answers. And don't do it from a place of criticism or stop using this tool, but just document that stuff to start and then work out what's our objective here. Is it like Ian's to reduce the number? Is it just to be aware or review what others in the market? But start with that is what I would suggest.
I think the key point there is the need for any SOAs needs to have an annual review, just to make sure the stack continues to be relevant and functional.
Some of that's training, because again, that might turn out that, Greg, we hate Outlook and Outlook doesn't work very well. And I say, Adam, you use Outlook, Ian. Jump in and show it to me. And he looks and he navigates around. I say, do you know you could do this and this in Outlook? He goes, no. No one ever showed me this. My IT firm didn't show me this. Some of it just unpacks awareness of the full capabilities of the tools you're already using, whether that's Teams or OmniLife or whatever it may be. Sometimes it's just retraining.
Just on that, because you're touching on my next question, because it's all about bringing your teams on the journey and getting them involved in the decision-making process. Now, Ian, I think from memory, you've also organized your team into little squads with kind of product champions that help put forward those recommendations and decisions. Ian, can you talk me through that, how you got the team involved in the whole decision-making process?
Yeah, so that's right, Reg. We did create champions within each department that we have within the business. But I think the initial step for us as a management team was actually having the approach that the team is always going to look at this with a what's in it for me mentality. So to bring them along the journey, there's got to be a benefit for them in their role, and whether that's efficiency or whatever that piece is, you've got to be able to identify that and clearly articulate that to the team. And it's important that you address that up front and for each department, because there is very different benefits along this journey, regardless of what technology that you're changing. Different benefits for the admin team is going to be very different to the power planning team, which is then very different to the advice team. So if I use IF as an example of how we ran that, we are fortunate enough, as Greg mentioned, that we've got IT and compliance and a broader management team within the business. But we were able to talk to the power planning team initially around the generation of device documents. And the win for them was going to be that if we do what we think IF can do by migrating out of Xplan, we're going to go from a plan taking nearly 2 days to generate to 3 hours. That's a massive tick for power planning, for the advisors when we were talking to them around you're no longer going to have to jump into Xplan, and that we're going to be able to cut the delivery of advice from 90 days down to 30 days, which was our goal. Again, that's a massive win for them. We were really diligent in making sure that we identified what was in it for the team member. We were also really transparent with the roadmap as well. So it wasn't something that we were trying to hide. We actually showed that in a all-staff meeting as part of the team and did some follow-up conversations as part of that. And we actually showed them what we were doing, the timelines around when we were hoping to turn things off. We were transparent when we meet different timelines because of certain reasons. And that really brought the whole team along the journey, as well as having these champions with the technology. And I think just on the champions side of things, it was really important that we had these champions in each department, that when we went through the training process where you may have had the whole team in the room and we were learning from a Fin 365 on how to use it or an IF on how to use the technology, that someone who wasn't comfortable asking a question within that group environment could then have someone to go and talk to when they were actually getting hands-on experience using the tool in their day-to-day life. The other really good piece around the champions is that they were generally then the advocates for the technology. So it's not uncommon for the whole team to walk out of that team group training session and you've got one or two people that doesn't think it's a good idea and can't see the benefit. If you've got an advocate or a champion, as we called it, within the business, within their team, who is a peer doing the same role, who is advocating for that technology, we found that whole mindset changed as part of that process, which was really valuable.
Yeah. Anything you want to add there, Greg?
I know that these are probably vary in scale between Ian's size or maybe plus, and again, sort of average size of customer is about 15 to 20. Even if you have 4 staff, Reg, they're probably doing different parts of the process, CSOs, associates, marketing, whatever it may be. Even if it's more than 1 or 2 people in the business, you should have a discussion about this. Now, as you get larger to end scale, having champions departmentally makes sense, but just get engaged, Reg, is the answer. And we see regularly that, Greg, I know you from XYZ conference. We're going to sign up with Fin 365. And I say, have you engaged the rest of your team in this, Ian? Have you told anybody this decision's been made? And he says, no, we'll work it out later. We tend to say to them, if you unilaterally make the decision, and that's a practice principles prerogative, just like it's mine, it's a better idea to go and have engagement up front saying, guys, I've seen this thing. I'm talking to Fin 365. What are your concerns? What do we need it to do? What are we not getting today? What are we fearful it doesn't do? And unpack those things like Ian did and work through them together, because then the staff are on the journey. And by the time the decision is made and you're moving through training, there's a bit of buy-in because they've been involved in decision making, rather than just saying, I've got a new thing, Reg, I bought this. Everyone work this out. As Ian said about what's in it for me, like, why am I here doing this? I was comfortable doing, even if it was manual, they were using Outlook tasks every day to manage their workload, God forbid. It still happens. And all of a sudden someone's saying, we're getting rid of that. Forget how you do your task. We're doing this thing. And they haven't been involved in that sort of journey. We get pushback. And we still see that sometimes as a provider, that it's not as collaborative as what Ian's example was, where again, there's had little advocates running around promoting, we're on this together. Let's go.
Very good. Look, this is a slide just outlines what is the connected advice ecosystem under MyFortress. I think the big call out here, obviously, is the FinIF that works really well. But the biggest call out here is that MyFortress have also got their own client portal. Now, that's probably for another webinar, Greg, around how we talk about that. But I think for you, Ian, in 30 seconds, what was the key reasons behind you built your own portal?
We started the journey around the client portal around 7 years ago. And at that point, we didn't or couldn't find a technology that was a client portal that was built for advisors. The client portals were quite often built for the client and created no efficiency for an advice practice in the back end in terms of being able to take a client along the advice journey. So we flipped that thought process on its head and said that we're going to develop the client portal for the benefit of the advice practice. And we knew that in doing that, we would create a significant benefit to the client as well.
Brilliant. So these are the outcomes from your business post the 2-year transformation. Clean set of numbers. Client onboarding, you've significantly cut that down. You're one of the few firms that captures NPS scores from the clients, and a huge jump in there. Ian, from your perspective, any key metrics that may not be there that you want to talk about, but for the ones that are there, the ones that you're really proud of, and why?
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest one is the SOA production times. So We know that there's, and I'm sure everyone's experiencing, there is a huge demand for advice at the moment with just the amount of people retiring, the generational wealth transfer, and then the significant halving of advisor numbers across the country. So we were able to get the advice production piece down from 16 hours down to 2 hours, which, as you've got, there's an 8 times productivity uplift. We just would not have been able to cope with the demand that we have over the last, particularly 12 months, if we didn't have that. As well as that, it's also the tech and operational costs. So the high level number there that talks around the cost saving is, yes, really important. But the other piece that is not as tangible is around, we've now got a really clean tech suite where we've got Microsoft being used as the core. We've got this really strong and efficient advice process in using IF. And then we've also got Fin365, which is essentially our CRM that we then do all of our tasks in one view of the client. And all of those tools integrate and share data, which means that our team is entering data once, whereas they were probably entering it somewhere up to 5 times 18 months ago as part of that advice journey. So although the SOA production times is the efficiency capture within the metrics table here, I can't underestimate what we've actually done from having a core system and then our advice generation and our what we call our CRM in Fin365 that has brought all that integration together.
Can I ask a question, Reg? Am I allowed to ask a question here?
Yes, mate.
Question for Ian. If I gave you a choice, a King Solomon style choice, Ian, would you have chosen at the start of this journey to save no money but get more efficient? Or would you have chosen to save money?
I would have chosen that become more efficient and spend the same amount of money. The money is simply a byproduct of us becoming more efficient by turning off all the programs, and just because of software costs, choosing cheaper options, not by choice, but just by default. But certainly I would have kept the same cost if we had still got the 8 times productivity uplift, absolutely.
Spotlight, secondary question that you might not know the answer to. We get that a lot in terms of when we're doing demos or having conversations with advice firms. I spoke to one a few weeks ago and they said, we're spending 1.3 mil on X product in particular. They said they named a particular product and I said, yeah, that's a lot of money. But when I asked them about their overall spend, they couldn't really get into the weeds. Like, how well did MyFortress itemize what their tech spend was? Is it just that one line on the P&Ls of saying subscriptions or IT costs, or did you break it down historically? Was part of this process to say 90% of it's being spent on that product, or did you break it down as a natural behavior or not?
Yeah, we did. So at the start of the 2-year roadmap, we actually listed every technology that we were paying for or had within the business. We then understood the functionality of that product, so what we were using it for. We then broke it down another level to say how many users have we actually got with that product. And of those paid user accounts, how many of those users are actually using that on a regular basis?
Yeah, the last one's an interesting one, isn't it? You're paying for it, are they actually using the thing or not?
Yeah, and that really highlighted the whole downstream process around, we've got this technology, what are we using it for, who's actually using it? And that became the instigator of saying, is there a better solution that we've actually already paying for as part of our Microsoft suite, which can do the same job to an 80% level? And that was an instant tick. Yep. Or is there a different way we can do this where the data will actually integrate to the other core systems and create that efficiency?
Thanks for the insight.
With the benefit of hindsight, Ian, is there anything you would approach differently?
I would have started the 2-year journey earlier. So I think that would be the one thing. So that's probably one of the takeaways is there's no good time to start this. And I don't think waiting for the end of the calendar year or the end of the financial year is the right way to do it. I think it's something that you need to do, and you need to do it now if you haven't done it in recent times.
Yeah.
If I'd given myself more time, I probably would have brought the timeline to be quicker as well. So we were probably not quick enough in terms of what our roadmap looked like and the milestones that we wanted to hit as a business. So I'd be pretty bullish on that, and just making sure that you've got deadlines and actually turning off different programs. So set your deadlines around actually turning off the program, and once the program's turned off, you can't use it and your team will find a solution.
GD, you're smiling there. Is there anything that you want to add to Ian's point? Really good points from Ian.
I think we speak to these themes as we're going through here. Yeah, that's the best place to start. Yeah. What you're really asking is, where do I start? The best time to start is now, obviously.
Yeah.
Typically, we get asked these questions, and I'm sure you do, Reg, from a demo perspective, is normally driven by one of two things: frustration or curiosity. They hear a lot of noise in the market about a variety of things and AI this and if that and Fin365 noise. So the curiosity, maybe they're comfortable where they are, they haven't thought about it, they're just looking around, and that's okay. Looking around and being curious is always a good idea. If it's a frustration part, start with that. So Ian was rather clinical with his management team in writing out what are we frustrated by and why. Is it, lack of productivity, the process is too long, and capability and productivity, and then costs. So they were able to identify those three things, not just say, Greg, we don't like this tool that we're using. And we get that a lot. And I say, that's wonderful. What don't you like about it? We're not sure. I said, maybe break that apart. Is it if you're speaking to the team? So itemize those things. What are the frustrations overall? And then break them into departmental frustrations, as Ian said.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point, it makes the pathway clearer, Reg, about where to start looking and what questions to ask much clearer. Much clearer. It might be a Fin365 discussion early on. It might be an if one. It might be a Microsoft one with your IT firm. And if you don't have internal skills like you do, it might be going to your MSP saying, we're paying for E5 licenses and getting all this stuff, but we're not using Teams Recap or any other functions. What is this stuff? And just doing some retraining on your existing functions. And that would add some benefit.
Yeah.
So basically, here are some of the key themes. So there's lots of things that sort of came out and really stood out today for all of us, I think, which was the importance of reducing complexity rather than adding more tools. I think Ian described that quite well. The value of connection and end-to-end advice ecosystem, I think that has been described really well by the boys today, and that it is really important to get the right tech talking to the right models and not adding things where you don't need to be adding them. And also making some small targeted improvements that can bring meaningful efficiency to client outcomes. So you'd be surprised what things you can do internally that are going to affect your outcomes, that are just going to improve things significantly and give your team a lot more time to be able to do the things that they do best, and that's service your clients. So Greg mentioned that before, that there's no silver bullet for any of the things that we're doing here. We get to the best of closest to 100% that we can with most things. But is there any final thoughts from all three of you? Greg, I'll start with you with regards to what your advice is for people today.
Do something, Millie. There's my suggestion. Do something. We speak to a lot of firms who, as I said before, come to us with, they hear about us, so they're curious, but they haven't really done any due diligence on themselves, Millie, about documenting what they use. Again, MyFortress are here as a great case study because they do this well. They have a repository and a very strong documentation internally of, I'm making this up, Ian, so don't use this as gospel. We're using Calendly for this, MyFortress portal for this thing, revenue management done this way, we do product comparison this way. They do that really well. Many firms, when I ask them these questions innocently, and I'm asking from a curiosity perspective, how many tools do you use? They can't answer, Millie, a lot of the time. They don't know what they're using, or they don't know what other staff in the business are using. They don't know. The best place to start is that, documentation of that, and then working through, if we move to Fin365, is there an opportunity to reduce or replace, as Ian said in his scenario, those 5 tools we could move to Fin365, and that saves us some time and money and centrality of data and double entry and all that. That's the best place to start, Mill. Write out that list of what are we using now, and are there any frustrations? And if so, what are those frustrations? But do so not from a relatively autocratic perspective. Go and talk to the paraplanners and say, Ian, why is it taking 16 hours to produce this advice? Are you using this tool as best you can? Yes, I am. I've been doing this for 10 years, Ian. Give me some respect. Okay, you are. So it's the tool that's inefficient. So what can we do then to go and find something else to replace that? That's got to come out of open dialogue, Mill. You can't just say, one item, this product, 1.3 million, that's no good. It might be the right answer, but I think if you do some curiosity and some checking, you'll find some savings and some efficiencies in the connected ecosystem, as it were.
Excellent. And just to let you know, we do have some great questions coming through. So if you've got any other ones, please keep them coming through. Ian, your final thoughts for today?
I 100% agree with what Greg said. I would just add and reiterate that don't get too caught up around finding a tool that completes the task 100% to your requirements, because you will never get there and you'll end up in the same position as we did and have too many disparate tools that do not integrate with each other. So you really need the integration piece as your core. And when you find that, everyone's life becomes a lot easier.
Great advice. Yeah, I think we're all speaking the same language here, which I think is wonderful. Look, I'll move on to some of these questions because they are some really good questions coming in at the moment. So I'll put this one out to everyone. Of course, you'll know which one is relevant to you. So here's one, just so everybody's aware. I've promised in the communications that I keep this anonymous, so you don't need to be identified to do this. So one of the questions here, or one of the statements here, is thanks for sharing all these insights, Ian. In terms of data entry only happening once, is that primarily happening through your client portal, and does everything feed into Fin365?
So the answer to that question is Yes, the fact find is getting done within our client portal, but we have built the integration into Fin365 so that the data flows into that system and then flows out into our IF tool and then any other tool that we use as part of our tech stack. Yes, it is coming through our client portal, but it would be a similar scenario that if it was just entered directly into Fin, it would still push out to our other systems. It's just we've got the proprietary tool that sits on top of that.
Certainly. Excellent. Next question here is, as I understood, Fin365 has advice production capability. Where is the role for IF in this integration?
I'll answer that one, Reg. Fin365, since its inception with Stephen and I a decade ago plus, we've always said we want to be the best business management and CRM tool we can be. What that means is from a connected ecosystem, we are working with IF for that reason. Now, we have an integration with Xplan today, so if you want to send your data to Xplan and do power planning there, have at it. And retain that for your advice production, that's fine. But we are, again, very careful about choosing partners to work with to say, where is the next foothold in advice production that's efficient, smart use? So we connect to IF as an advice production story. We do not do advice production. So they're not a compete to me in any way. We're very much a collaborative model.
Excellent. And we've got another question here. What are the most recent enhancements that IF have implemented recently within its ability to have a connected ecosystem with Fin365?
Yeah, so I'll answer that, Greg. So we launched the Fin365 integration in February of this year. The second sort of release that we're aiming for is probably over the next 3 to 6 months, where we'll be able to push back data from IF to Fin365 if the firm wants to follow that workflow. So it might be useful for workflows where you use the IF client portal to acquire data from end clients and write the plans through IF, and then once they become an end client, then push that data into Fin365 to create the household or the profile. But that's not available now. It's only one way from Fin to IF.
Thanks, Reg. Appreciate that one. And this looks like our last and final comment. This one's directed to you, Greg. What is Fin365 doing to innovate, or what is the roadmap versus Microsoft specifically?
There's a very big difference between what Microsoft are doing globally across all of their products, because it's Copilot first everything these days, to what they're doing in Dynamics, which is the CRM that we're based upon. Dynamics itself has got a lot of Copilot and a lot of innovation being built into it, but none of it is financial planning centric, none of it, in terms of understanding how advisors and their staff need to run their business, in terms of tools. So all of the work we do from a developmental point of view is broadly 6 streams. 1, building specific financial advice things in the CRM itself, so functionally day to day. 2, data feeds, so bringing data in from third-party platforms. Microsoft don't do that stuff and won't, so me talking to CFS Edge or whomever is important. 3, integrations. That's the IF story, making sure we're integrating with other partners to send data out and bring data in, like IF or MyProsperity or Xero or whatever. 4, there is a part now of, we also have a client portal. Ian has his own, and we applaud people going and building their own if they think that's the right thing to do, but we also have a client portal. 5, you need to have a client and advisor portal to manage those integrations and approve data going both ways. So we have an advisor portal for that, Millie is the 5th one. And the 6th one is AI stuff. So we are building out our own suite AI agents that leverage Microsoft products to then do functional things like compliance agents and investment analysts and things like that. So Microsoft are a wonderful partner to have, Millie, the 2nd most valuable company in the world, or 3rd. But again, they are worried about global applications across all industries, not particularly financial advice in Australia, which respectfully is a little bit small compared to US manufacturing or something of that nature. So we are all guns a-blazing on understanding the needs of the advisors in Australia and tackling those and leveraging Microsoft spend to do that.
Excellent. Look, we've just had one final question come in. So for data being pushed between CRM, IF and other parts of the tech stack, is it encrypted and safe? And is the tech stack ISO compliant?
Both sides, yep.
That's what we need to hear. Brilliant. Look, I thank everybody for putting their questions in. It's been great to have those question answers, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. If you'd like to continue any of these conversations or see how it works in practice for your team, please feel free to reach out to Reg or Greg, or I'm sure Ian would take any conversations if you needed to have a further chat there. But look, we welcome those conversations. We'll leave those QR codes up for a little bit of time here. But look, we appreciate it, Reg. Greg, Ian, wonderful job. Great to speak to both of you. Thank you so much for your insights. It's been really valuable. And if all else, we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.